Test.
Testing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bellworks Career Day. My name is Brooke Petrany. I am the head of marketing at NPZ Studio Plus. We are the marketing and design team behind Bellworks. I work for the creative director and lead designer, Paula Zamudio. We're very excited to welcome you here today. So I will be moderating this amazing panel of industry leaders alongside Cara Zibbell, who is the VP of People and Engagement at Atrium. If you want to introduce yourself a little.
Sure, thank you, Brooke, and welcome everyone to the Career Day. My name is Cara Zibbell. I'm the Vice President of People and Engagement at Atrium. Atrium is a staffing and contingent workforce solution firm. So basically, we specialize in finding people jobs. So we're honored to be here today to moderate this panel of industry professionals and looking forward to hearing from them today.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Guggisberg. I am an area vice president for Adecco staffing, which is back here in the left corner. And like Paola, we are a staffing firm as well, and we got the coolest job, I say, in the industry because we get to match job seekers with customers every single day. So I always tell my friends I'm a matchmaker for a living, so it's a really fun job. So grateful to be here.
Hi, I am MaryAnn Patton. I'm Chief Growth Officer with Northeast Financial Network. We're a partner firm with a very large employer here, Guardian. We are a generational insurance-based wealth management firm on the 4th floor. I love this event, Brooke. It gives us an opportunity to engage with the community, to have open discussions and dialogues about important things like career, because we are growing and we're happy to have this engagement opportunity. Look forward to talking or answering any questions.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Avaltroni. I serve as president of Fairleigh Dickinson University. We have 2 campuses in New Jersey, in Florham Park and in Teaneck Hackensack. And we also are very excited that we have launched a partnership here at Bellworks to begin offering educational programming come this fall, starting late August, including a cohort of MBA students, as well as other programs like Certified Financial Planner programming, and other things that will frankly be delivered on demand based upon interest and need to the community here in this building, as well as to the Monmouth County community at large. So we're looking forward to the partnership and looking forward to the panel today as well.
Thank you, Michael. So today our panel is going to be covering ahead of the trend, the future of work. So to kick us off, I just want to ask our panelists, what skills do you think you should share with all the job seekers here that will be most in demand in the current state of the workforce market?
So the thing we hear all the time as we are talking with employers, as we're talking with students who are going on interviews, as we're talking with people who are in the workforce, it's the constant and recurring theme of people wanting people who are adaptable, who are able to navigate very, very changing and complex dynamics. And more than anything, the thing that we hate as a term that we, I think, want to rebrand, people talk a lot about soft skills. And I hate the term. I think most of us do because it implies that they're somehow lesser. And in fact, they are, I think, the thing that are most important right now. People who are good communicators, people who are adaptable, people who are able to work on a team, and people who are able to work in complex and changing situations. And as you see everything out there changing day in and day out with the advent of AI and the machine learning and the changing workforce dynamics, we know more than ever people who are have an ability to be adaptable and be very, very flexible in the way that they operate, I think is going to become an increasingly more valuable skill that people will bring to the workforce and employers will continue to look for in greater and greater demand.
I just say I agree with that. I think outside of the natural AI that we hear a lot about and the artificial intelligence and the technology, I mean, you look at this beautiful building and what started here at Bell Labs, right? It tells you that technology keeps moving. And so outside of those skills, I also do not like the term soft skills, so I'm glad you said that. But I also think you could use it, data, we have a ton of it. We've got to be able to analyze it, but we have tools that can help us do that today, but that does not remove the human touch. right? We're still going to need the human touch within our skills toolbox and not just the hard skills that we need in technology and AI to keep moving.
No, all great points. And I think particularly what I might add to this younger generation who is starting to look for opportunities, if you haven't had experience yet, I think one of the things that we see as being most challenging for this sect of people is in fact some of these skills that you're talking about. So really honing in on that ability to communicate, body language, making eye contact, and being interpersonal, really a huge thing. So all great points there. And for some of the employees who are job seekers here today, who are looking to be in a leadership role, what qualities do you think are really integral in terms of securing those types of roles?
I'll take that. I would say from notes and personal experience, what I would like to say is that there's a whole idea about having EQ. We think having that emotional quotient, having empathy, having an innate sense of leadership, team building, strong communication skills is absolutely paramount for being a great leader. We also talk about having resilience, right? If you're in a leadership role, typically that means those problems roll up to you. So your ability to deflect and handle those and to be able to reset is critically important to an organization and for an organization to have sustainable growth. Conflict resolution, feedback. We have an expression where we like to say that feedback is a gift. We can't look at feedback as being something that's negative, but that we take feedback as a positive. Great leaders are able to provide feedback and make change happen. I think also I put here, as far as our leadership, we look for having a strategic thinker, being visionary, having the ability to innovate, right? Again, we talk about being here at BellWorks. What's so exciting is being able to come in here every day and feeling the energy of innovation and having that work with us as we go up to our respective offices, knowing that to be a great leader, you need to be able to innovate, you need to be able to drive change.
The other things, I think those are tremendous points. We talk a lot about empathic leadership. We talk a lot about the servant leader as the model that I think you require now more than ever. The days of demanding things of people and having them sort of jump, they don't exist anymore in the workforce, right? At least not in most places. It doesn't fly, and you're going to end up with a major retention problem and a major hiring problem if that's your approach, because people now more than ever are looking for flexibility in their life, and they're not going to be nailed to or chained to a desk or a job any longer. The other thing that we talk a lot about as we sort of think about training up, future leaders is really thinking about preparing people to have a workforce in front of them that they're working with that's multi-generational, multi-dimensional, multicultural. In some cases, you're going to have people across multiple generations from, Generation X, Generation Z, some baby boomers, all within your mix of people you'll be working at, and the ways that they're motivated, the ways that they're challenged, the things that they like, the things that they're excited by will be very different. So you're going to have a very complex dynamic in any leadership role you're in. You have to understand your people and be very willing to work with your people to get the best out of them. And that's a skill that isn't taught. It's something that's learned often over years of watching good leaders and over learning from good leaders and over some hard knocks along the way as well. So I think it's a learning journey to be a leader, and it's not something you're going to get from a single course or a single curriculum or even from a single experience.
I'll just add to that. I think, yes, I look at my own team at Adecco, and I have 5 generations in the workforce today. And so to echo that, it is through hard knocks of learning how not to lead someone. You can read in a book about emotional intelligence or EQ, but oftentimes it's experiences that you live that you're like, never going to make that mistake again. So as a leader, I think just understanding and being empathetic, I think also corporations need to also have that corporate empathy as well, and meet people where they are today. And so that is a challenge. And so if you look at having 5 generations maybe in the same office space, that could be a challenge. So empathy, I think, is one of the biggest things.
Brooke, do you have the next question, or would you like me to?
Sure. So I feel like this will be a good question for MaryAnn, but we kind of wanted to think about the cultural changes that you think are going to be needed, like in the workplace, that reflects the current climate of what the workplace looks like.
Yeah. So I actually was thinking about climate of workplace in regard to our prior question as well. So when you're in leadership and you're working with teams that are in office, out of office, multi-generational, diversity, it can be a lot. And it can be overwhelming. In addition to that, which is a great thing, is definitely this whole idea of cultural changes and embracing cultures and accepting cultures and trying to use that as a unit for growth and a way to promote and to develop people. So it's very important. We also believe that part of culture in any successful organization has to be metrics, right? How do we measure? How do we measure? What does success look like? And again, combining all of this in order to create a unified outcome, which is a major goal, is important. So teaming and collaboration, you'll hear a lot now. So when you have different generations and different groups having to work together and then have that in conjunction with someone who's miles and miles away in another state, another part of the country, another time zone, can be challenging, but it also presents huge opportunity. So it's all about embracing differences, embracing changes with the desired goal. We also believe accountability in today's world is absolutely huge as well. And don't be afraid of being held accountable, right? Accountability helps you to achieve your goals, right? It's not only the goals of an organization, it's your personal goals, where you want to see yourself and how you want that win professionally. So we believe in virtual check-ins. We believe in having very sound communication, right? And different ways of communicating now more than ever. So it's not the convenience of sitting next to your colleague, right? We have to figure out how can we reach out to each other. What's our best way of communicating since we're miles and miles apart from each other? So there's a lot of different influences today that impact the culture. But I think another positive, I'm going to be another commercial for Bell Works, is being in a location like this allows us to further develop our culture and provide more as a workplace destination where we feel fulfillment.
Yeah, and on the Bell Works note as well, it's not only just the connectivity and the culture within each organization, but also between the organizations, right, and having the opportunity, whether it's office to office or in our co-working space called CoLab, it could be business owner to business owner that you're rubbing elbows with. So I think there's definitely a large opportunity for, kind of embracing the culture and future of work just here in this building. So anyone else about the culture?
The thing I would say, we've learned a lot about, the realities of online learning, which I think is a mirror for online work or kind of the virtual work. And a lot of people love it, and a lot of people don't thrive within it. And one of the things we've learned is that regardless of how technology reliant we become, and we see increases in that each day, we're still communal beings, right? We still thrive on interactions with other people. We thrive on interactions that are meaningful amongst a cohort. The example we always give is that one of the things that we hear most from students who are in fully online asynchronous environments, the thing they miss is the camaraderie, not with a faculty member always, with the other students, right? It's that, I hate this class, and talking about it and kind of vamping on why, or that was a really hard assignment, and everybody exchanging ideas of how they overcame it. A lot of that community, I think, is oftentimes neglected in its fullness, and I think spaces like this are a perfect example of having a community that you can plug into, even if it's not day in and day out. I think brings people fulfillment, and it brings people a level of engagement that sometimes is very hard to realize in a fully online world. I think the thing that we've learned a lot about is it has to be purposeful, right? The thing that's most frustrating is dragging everybody on the Garden State Parkway in rush hour traffic to come and have an hour-long meeting that you could have done on Zoom, right? That's not good use. If we're doing team building, we're doing engaging things, a lot of that meaningful, purposeful engagement people thrive on, and I think leads to a level of fulfillment in their job and in their work. So I think finding the balance is really the key to the future. I don't think we're going to be a fully online community where nobody ever shows up in an office, nobody ever shows up on a campus. I think we'll continue to find a balance where the best of both is realized. And I think that will be great for everyone, people who are employed, people who are employers, and people who are looking for that flexibility that they want and need in their life.
And I'll just add to that, I think you're absolutely right. I think during COVID, and someday we won't have to mention that word again, but we still are mentioning it. Even our organization, I think most organizations took a look at their real estate and, what could we afford? What made sense? Where do we need to be? We did contract in some areas, but what we're finding is we're moving back into those same areas that we contracted from COVID. And so, but in a different way, right? So it's in a place like this, like Bellworks, or a shared space, or within hoteling spaces. It's not that we have a physical Adecco office maybe in some spaces. In some spaces we are. We're opening 50 new branch offices across the country this year. And so we are reinvesting what we de-invested during COVID. And I think that says exactly what you're saying. It's not just an online world. It doesn't mean we're there 5 days a week. It might mean we're there 3 days a week, and the other 2 days from home or remote. But I agree with what they say.
And for the job seekers here, we're talking a lot about online versus in person, hybrid kind of model for the day-to-day in the office. So what are you seeing as far as like what companies, especially as like a staffing agency, like what are companies looking for?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are shifting back to more in-office because I think the value of being with your coworkers in a room, ideating, being able to discuss ideas, poke holes in those same ideas together in a meaningful way. But we're also finding companies finding unique ways, virtual whiteboarding sessions and things like that to allow Zoom to not just be Zoom, but actually be a tool that they use to take away from a meeting. But we are seeing more and more in our staffing world that people are wanting people in the office more often now than they did before. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things that I think we're seeing is going back to the first quality, Mike, that you mentioned, which was adaptability, right? You may be at that staffing firm and see multiple opportunities, and some are going to be remote, some are going to be hybrid, and some are going to be fully in office. And so it's being able to be in any environment and be able to position yourself and how you can add value to that environment. And I think that speaks to a lot of why most of these people are here today, which is as a job seeker, right? If you had to give me some advice, what advice would you give me? The market is very different right now. We are in that post-COVID transition again. And so a lot of people are finding it very difficult to traverse this market. So as a job seeker, if you could give this group advice, what would it be and what would that sound like?
I think, we talk about this obviously with our students all the time. So much of it is you have to define what you want, I think, in terms of not just, certainly what you want in terms of the field or in terms of the focus. You probably know what you want in terms of salary and other expectations. But what is it that you want in the short term, the medium term, the long term, right? Thinking about the trajectory for growth in your own personal career. What do you find fulfilling? What we're seeing more and more is that people are motivated and are, I think, excited by very different things than they used to be even a few short years ago, right? It used to be how quickly can you climb the career ladder? How can you get ahead? How can you continue to earn more? And how can you continue to move higher? A lot of people are realizing there's more to their fulfillment than that. And so kind of going and putting your own checklist together in your head of what it is that you believe would be the thing you want is critically important. But the other thing I would say is knowing that list is fluid, right? That what you are going to find is that until you're in it, you may automatically think, what I would love is a fully remote job where I could work all day in my home office, in my basement, and have all of this flexibility. And you may find that becomes a very miserable, isolating setting very early on in your career. Or vice versa, you may find you're so consumed by traffic and commuting and everything else that you don't care what the job is. That's not what you want. So a lot of it is almost a self-inventory or a self-assessment of where you find yourself at this point, where you see yourself in your next step, and continuing to evaluate whether or not that's changing for you and adapt with it as you go. I think that's what we're seeing more and more is flexibility is the key to people's life now more than ever. And having the ability to be flexible will continue to get you to a place where you're fulfilled in what you're doing and successful in it as well.
It's good advice.
Yeah, great. I also say take on lifelong learning. Things change so quickly today, just given the technology advancements and things. So consider yourself a lifelong learner, right? And so keep going after certifications. And I'll give myself as an example. This year I hope to be CCWP certified, which is Contingent Worker Program certified. I don't need it for my job or my role, but I want to understand more what my customers might be thinking on the other side of the table. So it's continuing to look for ways to learn new things that are out there. At Adecco, we have a foundation. It's the Adecco Group Foundation. And if you register with Adecco, we give access, whether we place you or not, you have access to over 3,000 courses online. Some of them will give you certifications. They are free of charge. Our foundation pays for every associate that goes through these programs, everything from project management, and we do it in tandem with Penn Foster. So definitely check us out over there if you want. But a continuing lifelong learning is so important, just given the environment that we're living in. I've been in this business for over 20 years, we'll leave it there. And just, it's changed so much, even the downturns that we've seen before. But the one thing that's been consistent is it just keeps going faster.
Great. And, with all the job seekers here today, we kind of want to talk about what the future of work is going to look like. Do you have any predictions for the next 5, maybe 10 years of what you think the office is going to look like? Hopefully a lot like this, but
Yes, I'll take that. I actually thought that was a difficult question to answer, right? Because I don't think any of us really do have a magic crystal ball of what that really is going to be. But we do need to embrace change. We need to see what is coming next. We're constantly looking and researching and see what trends will indicate. But for now, we are back in office. For now, we do value our people time, our organizational structure, our infrastructure, and continuing to invest in that as a way to attract top talent to give you a better landing place of where you want to build. So we think that the idea of having flexibility is important for us to grow an organization. We don't necessarily see it as being a remote scenario, and not 10 years out either. We know that technology will be able to continue to play a role. It's moving at a super fast clip in the financial world with fintech. However, we still value the relationships. We value our people. We value you being a part of our organization and helping us to grow. So I still see it as, for now, us working together.
I think one of the things that we're continuing to try and think about is how do you prepare students now for a world of work at age 18 that is probably going to not just have one or even multiple iterations, but scores of iterations over the next lifetime of their career. And I think that I think the very important facet of lifelong learning and this ability to continue to retool and retrain is going to become not just critical, it's going to become essential and in some cases almost non-negotiable. And the reason has to do with what we're seeing, day in and day out, right? You think about the fact that 2 years ago, nobody was talking about ChatGPT or machine learning or anything else, and now people are using it with great regularity. And there's these projections that within the next year, machine learning will surpass the knowledge of the most brilliant individuals, and within the next 5 years, it will pass all of the knowledge of all of the collectivism of knowledge on the planet from individuals. When you see and hear those things, you have to realize that there's going to be an expectation that jobs are going to change, the things people are going to need to know and bring are going to change, and frankly, the skills that you're going to need to demonstrate are going to continue to evolve in a way that I think in some facets we don't yet know. The thing we do tell our students is there are certain areas that are going to likely be not just in demand in continual nature, but are going to continue to increase, right? You think about something like healthcare. Healthcare is now up to almost 1 out of every $5 of the GDP. An aging population suggests that healthcare jobs will continue to grow at a point in time where, frankly, the healthcare is being crushed by vacancies and by the inability to develop and continue to engage a workforce. So if you're looking at career opportunities, places like that will continue to grow. Other areas we know will struggle, right? And the biggest challenge of all is that through every sort of cycle of industrial revolution that we've had, jobs have continued to adapt in a way where someone who at one point was making deliveries using horse and buggy became a truck driver, right? Now if you have a self-driving truck that gets you from point A to point B, that person's job now needs to be a computer engineer or programmer. But the skills of a truck driver are very different from one of a mechanical or computer engineer, as is the training, as is the knowledge, as is the experience. So this sort of next iteration we see brings a lot of unpredictability because the natural synergy of a slow evolution doesn't exist any longer. It's now going to be a rapid disruption, and disruption tends to cause two things. It causes major turmoil, but it typically causes major innovation. And I think that's the exciting part to think about, is to think about all of the innovative ways that you'll continue to be able to define the world of work and the world of opportunity if you're nimble and you're flexible and you're willing to think outside the box.
Yeah, but I think what you're also talking about too, and I really love this idea, is critical thinking, right? It's being able to be that value add and connect those parts and solve the problem, whatever that problem might be. So you as the job seeker, when you go into a potential opportunity, what is the problem that that employer has? What are they looking for in filling that gap? And then you show up as that best version of yourself with all of those stimuli and all of those things that have contributed to who you are, and demonstrate through communication how you might solve that problem, how you might fill that gap. And so I think a lot of what we're all saying here is it's not just a matter of I have a degree in marketing and I am looking for a marketing job. It's I have a degree in marketing. I've been raised in a culture that has given me these values. I've been given opportunities that have contributed to this full person, and I would like to show up and add value to this particular problem that you employer have. And I think those are the people that are rising to the top, right? It's being able to make that connection. And so I encourage all of you to use all the resources out there, whether it's Adecco, whether it's at Atrium and professional coaching services, no matter what it is, FDU and getting education, showing up at a real-time in-office environment to show that collaboration is where you need to sell yourself. And I think that is probably the most critical factor in finding jobs today.
And this is a great start. Everyone getting here and putting themselves out there and introducing yourself in this like raw environment, I think is a great first step too.
Yeah, but Bellworks offers that ability, right? I mean, just, and I've never met Mike today, and we had a very critical conversation about how our organizations can help each other. And here at Bellworks, you're connecting at all times within this atrium. Great place to be for that kind of collaboration and for that type of connection.
And on the design side of it, when Eero Saarinen was designing Bell Labs in the 60s, while everyone was building skyscrapers up in Manhattan, he decided to build sideways or horizontally in Homedale, New Jersey. and that was the initiative for that was for the people to create serendipitous connections and cross-pollinate and exchange ideas in passing instead of just going in the elevator and going up. Now you can't really leave your office without seeing someone you know out on the block, and we create these experiences just like this where everyone can, meet. You never know who you're going to meet, such as the president of FDU here today. So that's kind of just, I think, an encompassing thought of the future of work is, I think, what we're looking at right now. So any other predictions, Jason?
I think they hit on most of them. I think we don't know what we don't know, right? But I do think that the lines have been blurred between professional and personal so much that places like Bellworks allows you to kind of have a little bit of both. I can go over there to the office and work with my team, but we can also go have a beer after work or grab lunch over here at Mezzaluna, which is also my favorite place to eat while I'm here. My meatball parm. Don't look here. Yeah, and upskilling and yeah, exactly. It's good. I think just continued learning, upskilling and reskilling. Organizations are going to have to figure out how to do that with their current employees, right? And leaning on education institutions to help them develop that. You're going to have a great workforce that's already bought into your brand, brought into what you do. But how can we upskill them for the next skills they're going to need? And I think our talent and learning and development teams are looking at that constantly. Like, how do we keep people from leaving us to go get skills that they think that they need for the future, and how can we upskill them inside of our own organization? And so I think companies are going to have to look at that as well.
And I know you just mentioned Mezzaluna, but does anyone else have any Bellworks shout outs or any favorite stops or a way to spend your afternoon here, just to end it on a fun note?
I love to actually, my commute to campus is over an hour each way, and my commute to Bellworks is 12 minutes. So anytime I can take a meeting somewhere from here, it's more than welcome, and it is a very, very nice commute back home. So this has been, particularly through the pandemic, this was a great go-to to get out of the house, but to stay very much in an office setting that felt very familiar.
And that'll be such a great benefit for the tenants here and any potential new tenants here who will have access to the new partnership with FDU. So we're excited for that. MaryAnn?
Well, after I tell you this, I think you'll probably either say she works in this building way too much, but I will say that I exercise here. I have many meals here. I go to a hair salon here. I have a dentist here. I have a trainer here. I go outside and hit golf balls here. Yeah. So, I think that is, one of our great selling features as far as our organization and why we actually are here, is that when you're trying to attract top talent to an organization, to be able to say, as I look out and see some of our people here, to be able to say that we're in a place where we know you can live a life outside of your life and have a work destination and have balance in a world, and I forget who said it, that we are 24/7 because of our technology. We're tied to our technology. Work is right here. It's on the beach with me. It's in the car with me. It's in a doctor's appointment with me. It's wherever we have a down moment. We're honestly probably working. So having the ability to have a place where we can unplug and separate and find other ways of having balance is what makes Bellworks and the Metro Hub concept so great. And I highly encourage, if you can find a career position here, it's worth being here.
I have to agree.
Yeah, we've had a number of job seekers who have come up to the Atrium table, and some of the things that they've said is, oh my gosh, I would love to be in this building.
Yeah.
So back to what I was saying before about, or actually Mike started about taking an inventory, right? And so let's say on your inventory, it's I want to work in Bellworks, and that's a non-negotiable for me. Figuring out how your profile could potentially fit one of the positions at the vast number of companies that are here, and being able to make that your value-driven proposition. I mean, it sounds silly, but I look at all the people here who have degrees in varying disciplines, but then I look at a place like Atrium where we're hiring recruiters who are in all verticals, and if you've worked in that particular space, let's say a clinical science space or an administrative space, you have something to offer to other job seekers in that space. So why not be a recruiter at Atrium in Bellworks? Not a bad thing. So you can make that connection sometimes in the most indirect way, but to be able to critically think through that to get to your end goal is the part that's going to get you there.
Can I add one other thing that I was thinking about with that too? Is that if you are a job seeker, sometimes you have to go outside of your comfort zone to locate that opportunity, right? And if Bellworks is a place where you want to be, which I completely echo that, you should. Network here. Come here, visit some of the facilities that are here on the first floor, which is open to community, because those of us that are upstairs come down here, and we might grab lunch here, we might meet other colleagues here, and it's a way that you can network. And there's great events that are here that we go to too. So sometimes I might be down here and get to meet and have an awesome conversation with someone that I never would have thought that I would have been able to meet. Could be somebody that works in another firm or organization, but it could be you. And we could be standing online together. So I always say, open yourself up If you are a job seeker, don't just stick with the mundane and the traditional. Think outside the box. Think outside the 4 dots and take advantage of what's there. Because there's here and a lot of places there's opportunity. Sometimes you just have to be a little bit more creative in how you go about it.
Yeah, and another idea for the job seekers here today, our digital signage has a list of every tenant that's here, and so that just as a simple, like, creative solution, like MaryAnn was saying, like a creative approach is just to see what companies are here and reach out to them directly. Maybe they're not hiring at the moment, but it doesn't hurt to get your name out there. And same as attending the events, we host a lot of professional events as well as fun happy hours, but we host a lot of different opportunities for you to network and meet with people within the building and outside, because we are a community hub for the surrounding area as well. So those are a few different ideas and approaches to get connected. Anything else before we take questions?
One thing I'll just mention, and we very rarely engage students once they leave us, but you're an alum somewhere, and there's a network of people, and there's also a host of resources. Our Career Center supports people at every stage of their life. Most of the time, it's usually only people who are ready to get their first job. We very rarely see people come back, but we are open to and welcome those who want it. And the same way, I suspect you've got a network of people that you can leverage who are connected. And the thing that I think is wonderful now is sources like LinkedIn allow you to make these connections without ever having to really kind of work a room in a sense of that first pass, right? And you'll find if this is the place you want to work, chances are you'll be able to find someone in your network who graduated the same high school or the same college, who's probably here in this building. Reach out and make a connection and say, I see we graduated from college X or high school Y, and I would love to talk to you about your experience. And you'll find that more than ever now, there's an availability of resources at your fingertips that are very simple for you to draw from. And the thing I've found, and I'm sure everybody here would say the same thing, particularly on LinkedIn, people are tremendously generous with their time. If you connect with somebody, they're more than willing to say, I'd love to talk to you, I'd love to tell you about my experience, I'd love to meet you, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So again, don't just assume that it has to be even only in-person connections. There are ways to make those connections. And if you search for people who are working right now in this space, I'm sure someone in your network either is or is connected to someone who is.
Okay, and does anyone in the audience have any questions for the panel? Yeah? Well, you can.
My name is Shams. I would like to ask, you spoke about the soft skills, right? So I have been working for the last 15 years now. I am on a break after my graduation. I had the soft skills put on my resume, but recently I removed it based on a suggestion or advice from a senior person. And now after hearing this, do I really need to put the soft skills on the resume to I don't want to enlarge my resume 2 pages longer. Right. Yeah. So I would like to have. Thank you.
It's a great question, and I think one of the challenges is that I would say, and I would cede to those who do this day in and day out, but we talk a lot about, I think the best thing you can do is demonstrate the experiences of it, right? So rather than listing, because anybody can list that they're a good communicator, and whether they are or aren't, it's just a sort of a face value thing on a resume. If you've gone through a certification in, or have taken courses in, or have engaged in some facet of your life, I think demonstrable examples are probably the best thing, not just for soft skills, but anything on a resume or during an interview or anything else. It's drawing on the lived experience rather than just listing it as a checkbox.
I would agree with that. I think coming from the staffing and recruiting industry, I think, you can list a million soft skills, on the thing, but whether, I think to your point, Michael, it's being able to just demonstrate those in an interview by giving examples and have those examples ready to go when you get in front of HR, whomever might be interviewing you first, and make sure that that experience is demonstrating how you use soft skills along with maybe your technical skills to get a result, right? And so you do need to prepare before going into an interview. I know some people fly by the seat of their pants, but you should prepare. But you need to prepare stories that sort of bring out those soft skills, because it's really hard to display if you're not telling them the story behind it.
Yeah, there are multiple ways to prepare for things like that, but one of my favorite methods to this day is still the index card method, right? So you put the soft skill on the front of the index card, and then on the back, you need to think through all of the examples in your history where you have demonstrated through a successful outcome the use of that particular skill. And you will be amazed. You will be able to answer any interview question if you prepare that way. So, you list, if you read through a job description and it says that you need to be a strong collaborator, a really strong verbal and written communicator, those are the competencies that you will put on the front of those index cards. And then on the back of that index card, you will list all of the examples. It could be a personal example in your life. Let's say, for example, you've spent time, being a single parent, raising children, male, female, whatever it is, but you've had to multitask. That is a great example of being able to pivot quickly and be resourceful. List it. If you were a captain of an athletic team or of a chess club, another great example of being able to rally people under one vision and being able to execute and lead a team. So a great way to prepare for anybody that's been out of the game for a little while or is just interviewing for the first time.
Any other questions? Ooh. Joe?
What is EQ? That was the question.
What is EQ? EQ is your emotional quotient. So we have our intelligence. EQ is a more recent from one of a esteemed person down at University of Pennsylvania. And it's more we find that success now can be more predictively indicated through that emotional quotient, right? And if you think about that,
it's
like
Miracle Grow, right?
You need to get it under control a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's what your plant food is that drives you. So I always say it's like Miracle Grow for a person. What are your intrinsic drivers? And a lot of places, I know Atrium, we offer in our professional coaching services a way for you to assess your own EQ. What are your drivers? And I think that again is that inventory list, right? Everything you can learn about yourself, whether it's personal motivations, professional motivations, and or drivers, will lead you to that impassioned success. It's the success that MaryAnn talked about, where she said, I take work with me at the beach, at the gym, wherever I'm going. One could turn around and say, well, I don't want to be handcuffed to my job, but I bet you, if I'm a betting woman, that MaryAnn doesn't even feel it in some ways. She's impassioned and empowered to be able to do that. That's that nirvana that we're talking about, that personal and professional nirvana, that kind of, ebbs and flows like the ocean in a wave. You don't feel like you're in it when you're in it. When you're riding a wave, do you feel like you're in the wave? No, you're floating with it. And that's where you want to end up. And I think a lot of what we've talked about today is being able to personally get to that point in your own brain about what you're looking for, whether it's that vision board and working toward it. And not every opportunity is going to be that exact vision board, but it is a step to get there. So, I don't want to misrepresent that your first job or your next job is going to be that professional nirvana, but it's one step closer.
Foster, yes. Yeah, so if you want to go back and talk to one of the recruiters, they can talk to you about getting signed up for the Aspire Academy, which is, again, paid for by our Adecco Group Foundation. And it really is a way. There's over 3,000 courses you could take. They're not credited for, a college degree or education or whatever, but a lot of them will give you a certificate of some kind. And you will learn from them. I actually take some of them myself. So, there's over 3,000 of them, and it's free of charge. You just need to register with our organization, and we'll get you access to take the courses.
Well, what does that show? That shows drive. It doesn't make a difference if it's accredited or not, right?
Correct.
If you want to learn it and you demonstrate that as a personal driver. I noticed I was deficient in, or I noticed I could, be better at. Whether it has an accreditation to it or not, if you've gone out and sought after that way of improvement, there's the win.
And that goes back to what you put on the resume, rather than just saying I'm a good communicator, saying I've done 4 courses and got a certificate in professional communication, is at least demonstrable evidence that something was sort of measured and meaningful, rather than I just decided this morning I'm a good communicator, so I listed it on a box, right?
Right.
Hi, what would you say to somebody that they did one career, which was, I don't know, like teaching, but they feel drive to do something else, whether it's human resources or marketing? How would myself be able to go and put myself out there if I didn't, let's say I didn't finish college, but I have the work ethic in me and the strength in me where I can be able to go to work? What would you say to that individual that feels that?
Yeah, I think in general, there's a lot of people trying to cross over from one area to another right now, right? Because I think the pandemic did a lot of things, and it made a lot of people give a lot of people a lot of time to think about life and what really it means to us. And so I don't think you're alone in that, right? And I think I personally, if we were friends, and we could be friends if you want, my recommendation would be to just take stock, to Paola's thing earlier, of what you are good at and what you have done, and try to align those to the new career that you possibly want, right? And so getting in at the ground floor may be where you need to be to learn. I didn't go to school for staffing. I went to school for musical theater. I am not on a stage. I'm not doing musical theater, but I was able to align some of the skills that I learned by being in, having my degree in musical theater to recruiting and selling and all the things that are required and leading a team. And so taking stock and making sure you're aligning that to what they're looking for. And then obviously network. It's all about networking. It's so cliche, but it is. Every role that I've ever had, I've networked and found. I've not applied online. I've not got it because at this point, ATSs, applicant tracking systems, have algorithms and AI on them. Unless you have the right words, the right thing, and the right thing, it's not even getting through to TA, right? So it's networking with the people in that area would be really, really important as well.
And the thing I think that you should embrace is the fact that what you've done in your past career very much applies to what you're going to do, right? Because you've built a toolkit, no matter what it is you're doing. And you see this all the time, that someone who was a school teacher who now wants to go back and enter into healthcare as a physician assistant, as a nurse. The reality is you say, well, those aren't connected at all. But actually, they're very much connected, because teachers have a major component as a caregiver, as someone who is effective at trying to get people to do something that they don't necessarily want to do, right? You need to think about the fact that the toolkit you've built from the experiences you've had in your current job and in your history of jobs are very much applicable, even if not directly. And think about ways that you can connect them, because whether it's when you're interviewing, or whether it's when you're doing the job, or even just determining if it's a job you want to do, think about the connectivity with the things you've been doing and the things you've built. And then in some cases, whether or not they match up well to a career that would fulfill you in something new, and something that would probably be very different from what you're used to.
Can I add? I also want to say, you have to take a chance, right? So you're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to have, the cheat sheet to the test. You're going to have to take a chance and take a chance on yourself. And every time you kind of throw yourself out into that ring and throw yourself into that conversation, you're going to learn from that. And where you start is not necessarily going to be where you end. So I think it's a culmination of a lot of what you've heard here today is to network, first and foremost. Do your research. Find out, what does success look like in that particular role? What's the ideal? Knowing that you're not going to be the ideal from Jumpstart, but what will it take for me to get there? Use your networking, use your innate communication skills, right? Do the work. do the pre-work, and then you got to take the step. And the step is not always going to be the right step or it's going to work the first time. You have to be willing to embrace that, because every time you do that, it's going to get you that much closer to where you want to go. Okay? So take the first
good
step.
Advice. Yeah, really good advice. And I would echo that and say that I've noticed, I think we've all become somewhat reclusive as a result of COVID. And somehow we've applied that to our ability to take chances. And, you know, even I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm shy or I'm not assertive in asking because I'm afraid that I'm less than. Well, how do you know? And if you show up authentically and with respect and in a professional way, no one is never going to not answer. A lot of negatives there. No one's going to not answer your question or entertain a conversation with you. I mean, just from what you've told me, you have the ability to be able to influence others through teaching. What is marketing? Being able to influence a population to buy, to sign on for a service, whatever it is. And so finding that connection and being able to articulate that and taking that chance, it's a perfect recipe for finding that first opportunity to get you there.
Okay. If you want to come up, if you just hold it right over here.
Okay. All right. I just following up the same question. You said the taking chances. I really love that. So in my case, I've been on infrastructure side. Now I did my graduation in data science. So if I move on to data science, considering the current job market, so I feel like going back to the, my previous profile and not to go now at the moment. So what is your suggestion on that, around that? So it is to the point.
I'm not an expert in your field, but what I would say is this. Michael mentioned the career ladder before. I think that's gone out the window. I think it's a career web, and you may go sideways, you may go this way, you may end up going backwards to gain a skill. It's not always about the next thing being the next role, the next title, the next change in money, salary, whatever. So I think, from what I heard of your question, I think don't be afraid to sidestep or even go back just a little bit to kind of gain and then go up or move to the side. Career ladders don't necessarily exist anymore. I see a lot of my friends even going from side to side within organizations to gain different skills. And I'll give an example. I have a friend right now who works for Ann Taylor in the city. She was in the fashion side of the business, decided she wanted to get into the digital side of the business, so she took a project manager role, what her degree was in originally, and decided to become a project manager, which is one of the lowest level roles within production and within a fashion house. And so she's now being promoted and so on and so forth, but she did take a quote unquote step back on that ladder to get there. And so don't be afraid to do that and take chances, I think.
And I think there are companies like, I know Disney is one of them, where you can't work your way to senior management or senior leadership unless you've had a breadth of experiences across the continuum, right? So that's a company that you'd say is a very much an elite company, but a lot of these, they want to see breadth of skills that you've been in frontline operations, that you've been in back office and elsewhere. So it's not seen as always, people I think of it as a negative, saying, well, the title sounds like it's less than, so on my resume it'll look like I got demoted. But I think that is no longer a valid argument, because the world is changing and everybody on all sides knows it.
Thank you. Oh, we have another question. Do you mind coming up, actually?
Hi, I'm just curious if I could get some feedback on being a person who's re-entering the workforce for a while. Maybe there's other people that are doing that. I've been off for a few years. I'm also, when you talk about multi-generational kind of workforce and offices, someone like me that's kind of on a certain end of that, what should I be thinking about as I'm re-entering as well into perhaps that kind of environment?
Well, I have a little bit of it, because we talked earlier, but I think career reentry and career reorganization is incredible, right? So I see such a positive with that. I see, wisdom, maturity. I see life lessons, life skills that can be incorporated and enmeshed into an organization and a firm that can't always be found on a resume, right? And you know that. I mean, in your prior career, what you did and is impressive. So I think it's just a matter of being able to articulate what that was and then where you're looking to go, right? If you can clearly communicate that, it's going to resonate with someone, right? It's not going to, maybe not with everyone, but it will resonate. And I think there's a lot of power in having different life experiences and being able to talk about it like you did. So in the world that I'm in the financial world, having that experience is really an asset.
Yeah.
For even if there was an interruption, because that interruption can be articulated.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I myself am an example of that. While perhaps we were at different phases in our journey, I took time off to raise a family, which was something that was very, very important to me, and took 6 years off of my full-time HR career. And all of a sudden, I went to re-enter the market, and I was like, oh boy, 6 years is a long time. And while I was doing some consulting and things like that, I had a moment of trepidation. And I will be very honest with you, temporary work was great for me at that point. It gave me the confidence to be able to say, well, let me just try this again and let me see where I end up. And I took a temporary assignment as an HR manager with Atrium, and 6 months later, I was offered a full-time position to join their HR team, and 12 years later, I'm now running their entire HR department. So sometimes temporary work is the try before you buy, and being able to get that confidence to be able to continue on in your journey.
And the thing we always tell students who are returning after a long time away from campus, your story is an asset, right? And you need to embrace it and not run from it, right? And I think that's the thing that oftentimes people try and say, I just won't mention that there's a gap, or I hope people won't ask me about it. Everybody's story that they bring is their story, and it's a valuable set of learning tools that got them where they are. And what we've found, and again, I suspect very much the same in any scenario in a workplace as well, those students that are returning after a career, after other experiences, after having raised a family, they bring so much to the environment amongst their peers because they have a different lived experience. And so rather than it being seen as, oh, we're always, carrying this person's water because they're out of practice or anything else, the experiences that person brings oftentimes makes them sort of the point of the anchor point of a lot of others going to them to say, talk me through this, or from your experience in the past, or from the things that you've done. So I think people, are oftentimes fearful about it rather than sort of embracing it as being actually part of your journey, part of your story, and part of the thing that will bring an asset to your workplace and to your colleagues.
Yeah, own it. Own it.
I love that. I'll use an example, and Jonathan's here, and hopefully he's not listening. He's back there. So Jonathan, we just hired, had a break, in his journey, career journey as well. But his story, part of his story is we placed him as a temporary employee over a decade ago. And so he remembers that, which got him into his jobs that he had, which was in call center, customer service, and eventually within sales. And that's what we look for in staffing, right? We're looking for someone to run a branch or run a business unit. It's the ability to sell and market our services and our business. And so we took a leap of faith. Today is day 3, and he's out here like he's been a recruiter all his life. So embrace it, and just don't be scared to take risks, right? And try before you buy. It's not just for the customer, it's also for you.
Exactly.
I think we have time for one more question.
Is FTU going to offer masters through BellWorks?
Yes, so we are actually launching this fall a first cohort of an MBA program. It's offered here. It will be deliberately designed so that it is basically fits the lifestyle of the learner. And what I mean by that is it's one night a week here in person. Everything else is done either online or through sort of a modular approach. You're completed in, I believe it's 2.5 years. So it's an expedited approach where it's not drawn out over a decade where you say, I'm never going to finish this thing. It's specially priced. We do work as well with the employers through tuition remission or other types of tuition grant programs. And it's largely structured to really be exactly what we believe the best of what this place is about, which is embracing community, a community of learners that we're building, making it part of and integrated into the culture and into the fiber of the workplace and the work day. And we're excited about the fact that that will hopefully be the first of a revolving set of programs that we'll be offering here, some of them at the master's level, some of them degree completion, some of them certificate or other types of learning. But we just feel like it's a way for us to change and pivot the way in which higher education has always been, which is frankly way too siloed and way too behind the sort of quote unquote, ivory walls, right? And I think we need to be out and much more going where learners are. We talk about meeting learners where they are, and there's, I think, a responsibility for us to do that, both in terms of time and place of their journey, but in some cases, even in the physical time and place that makes it workable for them. So we're launching that first cohort. It's open right now for enrollment. If you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to any one of us on the admissions team at www.fdu.edu. Connect with one of us, and we'd be happy to put you in touch to tell you more about it. It's open to all of those who are here, but also to anyone who resides in the area that wants to use this as their home campus as well.
And anyone can reach out directly to Bellworks too, and we'd be happy to connect you with the team as well. So, well, thank you so much for the panel and Cara for joining us today, and for everyone tuning in. We have another hour of Career Day for you to meet with the hiring tenants of Bellworks, and another hour of the resume workshop with Adecco. So please enjoy the rest of the day, explore Bellworks, and thanks for joining us.